Welcome to another edition of Long Island Backstory. I'm really excited about our next guest today. As an animal lover my whole life and always wanting what's best for my animals, our next guest, Randy Klein, is the owner of Whiskers Holistic Pet Care, along with her husband Phil. They have two stores, one in Manhattan and one in Astoria. Their first store opened, I believe, in 1988. So Randy was really way ahead of her time when it comes to taking care of our pets holistically. Of course, now everybody else has jumped on the bandwagon, but in my opinion, Randy is really the authority in the United States on how to treat your pets holistically. So welcome, Randy Klein, to the show. A couple questions. First, just tell us, how did you get into the pet business?
Well, actually, my husband and I had a word processing company way back when, and we were looking to do something else when we came across a little one-aisle pet store in the East Village. And we had been having a problem with our own personal dog. She had bone cancer, and we went through all kinds of traditional therapies with her until eventually we came upon a holistic vet in a little shack in upstate New York, and we thought, you know, this guy must be really crazy. But we started to practice alternative therapies, changing her diet, incorporating herbs and supplements, and we noticed a huge improvement pretty quickly. For Tiffany, that was our dog at the time, it was a little bit too late, but everything that we learned led us to the pet store, and then the rest is kind of history, and that dog did pass away, and we've been treating animals ever since in a much more natural approach.
So you say natural. Is there a difference between holistic and natural, or are they one and the same?
Well, holistic is used as a big umbrella word. So, you know, if you picture an umbrella, and under that umbrella there are all different kinds of therapies. There's nutrition, there's veterinary care, there's acupuncture, chiropractic, and all of those fall under the big umbrella. And holistic is simply looking at a person or an animal, and you look at every aspect of either their disease or their natural condition. If they're healthy, that's great. That's really when you want to start. So when they're young, the holistic way to treat the animal is to try to give them as much of what nature intended them to have.
Okay. So how do you learn about this? Because you didn't go to vet school, and I don't even think the vets that I speak to really know about holistic medicine. It's sort of like if you go to a surgeon, they want to do surgery. Right. If you go to a vet, they want to give medication. So how do you learn about holistic? I mean, it's trial by error. You can't. Where do you learn about this stuff?
When we started 29 years ago, 30 years ago, there were a handful of holistic vets who put together an association. And we used to go to the conferences, we used to go to the meetings, they would write papers, and we used all of the things that we learned on our own personal pets. When we got the store and had the store in the same vein, customers would come in and they would tell us the results of things that we recommended for them.
So when you say holistic, it includes everything, including acupuncture and things like that. So somebody comes in, do you recommend it? Or when I think of holistic, I was thinking, well, my dog's got something wrong, I'll give you a holistic treatment. So you're saying it's more you work with, is there a pet acupuncturist?
Yeah, there
massage
are.
therapist? Or?
Yes, there are many different practitioners. Now, 30 years later, you can find holistic vets all over the country. And really, when I say holistic, it simply means that you're looking at the entire picture. Right. You're not just looking at, like, you have a problem with your elbow, so let's just look at your elbow. Well, your elbow is attached to your wrist, to your fingers, to your shoulder, to the rest of your body. So when you go a more holistic approach, you have to look at the entire thing.
So maybe I misspoke when I said holistic. So is there a holistic pet food, or that's not really the right word?
No, it's not the right word.
So it'd be there would be a natural or a natural pet food.
Right. When you're looking at pet foods, for example, you want to look at the ingredients. Are they using chemical additives? Are there food colorings? Are there preservatives? Look at the company who's manufacturing that food, because you also want to delve a little bit deeper into the source. Where are they getting their ingredients, and what kind of consciousness does that company have?
I would think you're probably doing that research for people, because you wouldn't looking at the bag and people don't have the time to look.
Right.
So somebody comes to you, which one of the questions I had was, what do you feed? Right now, there's so many recalls on pet foods every day.
Right.
You know, is it best to feed, to home cook for your dog, to give scraps? what is the best thing? Where do you even know to start? And if you go to a Petco or a PetSmart, they're not going to tell you. They don't know. They have no idea. They sell you whatever's on the shelf.
Right. We really call ourselves a product resource facility and an education center because, yeah, you're right. It's really hard to get people to read a bag. Right. First of all, a lot of the bags, they have the ingredient panel so hidden you can't even find it. Mm. Second of all, there are panels that are in different languages. And for a pet owner to sit there and really do this research, you're right. Many times they come to us. We have become known in the industry as a go-to place. We help people decipher the packaging. We help people determine what is the best food for your pet. And what is the best food for your pet? Well, the best answer I can give you, Gary, is that you go to a zoo. Right. And if you look in the cages of all the different species of animals, you will see that they each have different food. And if you look at any biography or documentaries on zoos, you would be amazed at the number of kitchens that are there preparing species-appropriate diets. And that, to us, in dog and cat world, and bird world, and bunny rabbit world, is what were they designed to eat out in the wild before we domesticated them.
Right. And what is it that they were meant to eat? Is it better giving them a steak from the kitchen table, or cooking up chicken and rice, or buying one of these dog foods off the shelf?
Frankly, it's much better if you prepare the food at home.
Okay. Which a lot of people can't do, but...
Right. And so now, 30 years later, there are so many manufacturers that have prepared frozen diets for your pet. We have a frozen diet also prepared. Some of them are cooked, some of them are raw. Human philosophy will dictate what you want to do for your pet.
Right.
Okay?
The trends follow.
Right.
I guess we have gluten-free dog food now.
Gluten-free, vegan, vegetarian.
Right.
The problem with all of those foods are you as the caregiver, you need to know what you're doing. Because, for example, if you try to give a vegan food to a cat and you don't know how to substitute proteins or amino acids, you can really be harming your cat and doing physical damage. Right. So do your homework.
So I think what you're saying is the best thing would be to cook.
Right.
Then the next bet would be a frozen diet. But of course, that's not that easy either, because you have to have room in the freezer and you have to warm it up. So then the next best thing is a bag of dog food, or is it a can?
A can.
Okay.
You only need a little bit of room in your freezer, and you don't have to heat it up, because dogs, for example, love frozen food. They absolutely love it. It helps to clean their teeth and their gums.
You feed it frozen?
Just feed it frozen, yeah.
So that's easy.
Very easy. It's easier than a bag of food where you have to open the bag of food, scoop out some stuff, put it in the bowl, put it down, make sure the bag is airtight because you don't want it to go rancid. Right. So this way you have a bag of frozen food. Usually they come in little nuggets. You keep it in your freezer. You take out the appropriate number of nuggets for your size dog, put them in a bowl, and leave the bag in the freezer.
Is it expensive?
Not really. You know, when you eat good, it's you maintain your health.
Right.
And
I mean, dog food is not cheap.
No,
anyway. I mean,
it's not cheap.
Dog food off the shelf is,
right.
I'm seeing $50, $60 for a bag of dog food.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a reasonable option to feed the frozen dog food.
You have to also think about what are you actually getting nutrition-wise in a can of dog or cat food that's 39 cents.
Right. Well, what can you get when you think?
Right. What can
if
you
I went
get?
and saw something cold cuts for 39 cents a pound in the store, I would be leery as to
right.
as to what I'm going to get. But there's also unscrupulous people out there,
right.
which of course you're not, because you guys have been around forever.
Right.
So we mainly talked about dogs and cats. Does this work with other animals, or is that only the only animals you deal with? Or is that only dogs and cats?
We have foods and vitamins available for birds. We have a huge rabbit society in New York City.
Really?
An incredible number of people own rabbits. So we have haze and pellet and toys and other chewing things for rabbits.
Now you mentioned vitamins just now in passing. Mm-hmm. Should you feed, I go to the store and I see shelves full of vitamins, and the vets push different types of vitamins. If you're feeding one of these good diets that you recommend at Whiskers, would you recommend feeding a vitamin also?
It depends on the health of your dog or cat or bird or rabbit. In general, if you're feeding a good quality food and a good diet in terms of how many times a day are you feeding? Are you leaving food out available, turning them into cows where they graze, things like that? Then most of the time we would say yes, add a good omega oil, an essential oil, because it's great for skin and coat, it's great for mobility, it's not going to hurt them. A multivitamin, maybe down the road when they get a little bit older, but
they're not
we
getting
have
as much nutrition from
from the food.
From the food that you're giving.
Digestive enzymes is huge in the animal world because of the way we try to feed pets, especially cat people. Cat people think you put down a bowl of dry kibble, you walk away, and then the next morning you put down another bowl. Worst way to feed. Very bad. Worst way to feed. Because you're turning them into grazers, number one. They're not designed to graze. They're hunters. And they are true carnivores. So the other reason why you don't want to make them vegetarians or vegans. But you want to give them meal time. In the wild, dogs and cats, lions or wolves, would go out and hunt for their food. And at the end of that hunt, their appetite is sufficiently stimulated so they'll eat the prey. And after they eat the prey, they sleep. It's kind of like a forever Thanksgiving in the animal world.
So you're saying giving all food, it's better for them to be hungry, or they will not be hungry in between meals?
They won't be hungry if you leave food out all day long. So most people think my dog is underweight and I want him to eat more because I need him to gain weight, so they leave the food out all day. You change the actual metabolism of the body when you leave food out because their senses, their smell turns their digestive enzymes on. If food is not coming down, you create acid in the stomach. So now you have cats that throw up, dogs that won't eat, anorexic animals. You want them to turn their light switch off.
So you're actually saying if you want them to gain weight, you're better off not leaving it all day and giving 3 or 4 meals of the frozen food and things like that.
See, it makes sense when you hear it, but most people just aren't aware of it.
I think, like you said originally, we try to humanize the pets and turn them into the whatever we're doing. Right now, vegan is popular, but one of the good things is possibly that we're turning towards organic foods. How do you feel about that? Because right now, organic is big for people. It sounds like it can't hurt for pets too.
Well, in the woods, you don't have organic versus non-organic, so to speak.
I guess everything is organic.
But if it's a choice between organic and non-organic, and you're feeding a fresh diet, then go for either one, whatever you can afford. If it's a choice that you financially can't afford to feed an organic food, but you can a non-organic food, then fresh is best. Fresh no matter what. Fresh is always best.
And just, if somebody wants to get fresh, and because people are going to see this on Long Island, they're not near you, how would they get it? I mean, I don't think I've seen some fresh in stores, but I've heard that there's issues with some of the lower end. Now people are making low end frozen. So how would somebody get? Can you ship it, or how would you get it to them?
We can ship it to them. We do have 2 locations. Our main location is in New York City, and we have a second location for those people who don't want to cross the water in Astoria, Queens, and it's not that far away. So
so you can get it to. I guess if it's frozen, you go there on a weekend and buy a month's.
We're open 7 days a week, so we're always available.
Now, right now, there's been a lot of things in the news about products coming in from China, and all these treats are being returned, and everyone's saying don't buy anything consumable that comes from China. What are your thoughts on that whole thing? Because you've been through everything came from China to a little came from China. Now everything from China is taboo if a dog's going to eat it. What's your feeling on that?
Well, it's a very fine line because so much product does come from China. So in many ways you're limited. But if you can get and you have access to homegrown products, then by all means that's the way to go for a lot of different reasons. But the other side of it is not everything that comes out of China is bad. There are American companies manufacturing food in China, Taiwan, and they have very good facilities in place to do testing and making sure that the quality of their food is safe.
So what you're saying is not necessarily is China bad, but if you don't know, maybe stay away.
And again, it's the consciousness of the company. You know, do you have a company that doesn't really care and they're willing to use a facility in China or Ireland or London or wherever, Venezuela, and they don't care about the source of the product that they're using in the food or the toys, anything, then you should be leery about
Same
it.
thing could be said for an American company who doesn't care, is
Exactly.
willing to just make money in the pet industry and
Exactly.
not realize that they're treating lives.
Right.
Give me an idea of some of the things that can be treated holistically.
Oh boy, everything.
Well, I can go down a
From-
couple things. I wrote down some of the problems that I've had with pets, and I'll ask you the questions. What about dry, itching skin? That's got to be like number one on the
Number
list
one.
that people come in. Is
Number
there anything
one.
you can do holistically with that?
Absolutely. The main reason that you have dry, itchy skin is diet related. And wheat, corn, soy, yeast, rice, all of those ingredients are very high on the allergen list.
Which the cheap foods, that's number
They're
1, 2,
fillers.
3 and
Right.
on the list.
Exactly.
So you're saying just switching the food though, you wouldn't treat it.
Switching the food first.
Okay.
Generally what we see is switching the food first is always prime. If you are on chicken, turkey, any protein that has feathers, typically those also cause allergies. So we would switch you to a lamb or a pork or a rabbit food.
Okay.
So switching the food for a lot of different ailments is usually the first recommendation. Second recommendation, how you're feeding again, the timing. And the third recommendation relates to vaccines and the overuse of vaccines
Really?
in our country.
With pets too, that's an
Absolutely.
issue also with
Huge
the dry
issue,
skin.
huge, huge.
Now, when you mentioned that when they come in with the food, should people rotate their food? Because to me, it would seem boring. I know, so again, maybe I'm putting my human, feelings on there, but I love Ruth's Chris, but I wouldn't want to eat it every night. I would get sick of it after a while. So I know even with my dog, I said, man, he's got to get tired of the same food. Do they get tired? Do they have the same thought process that they get tired of food?
Yeah.
And should we switch it?
Yeah, they
Okay.
do, absolutely.
So you do
and there are foods now which are called rotation diet foods.
Really?
So one particular brand has a great philosophy, and we back it because it works.
I'll mention the name because you're helping people out.
It's the Breeder's Choice Avoderm
Okay.
line of food. All of their foods have exactly the same carbohydrate content.
Okay.
And the carbohydrate change is typically what causes your dog to have diarrhea or your dog to not want to eat the food. The only thing that brand changes is the protein.
Right.
So in the body, when you have carbohydrates and they change to sugar, a lot of metabolizing has to happen, and a lot of things go on with that. So when you have the same exact carbohydrate, it's like you have the same base, and all you're doing is changing a little bit on the top with the protein. And protein, in general, is not a problem in the animal world. So there you can change them every single day, and you don't have to do
Interesting.
a slow introduction.
Because I would think in the wild, if you're going back to it, maybe one day they kill a
Right.
rabbit, one day they kill a
Exactly.
mouse.
Right.
So they're eating different
Exactly.
proteins. So I guess that sort of feeds into the natural
Diet.
Yeah, that's a good
Absolutely.
idea. What about bad breath?
Bad breath. Again, food related. Everybody thinks that dry food will help.
Clean the teeth and stop the bad breath. That's what I always thought.
Right.
Not true?
Well, if I gave you a box of Oreo cookies and told you don't ever brush your teeth, don't ever floss, just eat these cookies because
Right.
it's going to clean your teeth.
Because they're hard.
Sounds
They're
ludicrous.
crunchy, right?
Sounds right?
Yeah, you're right.
Well,
Let's put it that way.
think of a little piece of dry kibble food.
Okay.
You ever drop a piece in the sink and see it get wet
Right,
and it
and
blows
expands
up?
up. Right.
The same thing happens in the animal's teeth. It gets stuck and it expands. They don't floss.
Right.
Unless you're sitting there brushing your animal's teeth. Dry food does nothing at all to help clean teeth and gums.
Really?
Nothing.
Interesting. What does?
Brushing or raw bones
Okay.
or a big what's called a bully stick, which
Okay.
is actually a bull's organ, and you give that to your
And
dog
that's just
or
the
your
actual
cat.
chewing on it.
That's right.
that
Yeah,
cleans
the gnawing, the actual, taking that and scraping and in essence scaling their teeth.
Okay. What about gas? Because I know I've been to people's house and we sort of joke, oh, who did it? But a lot of dogs do have problems with gas and they
Right.
stink.
Right.
I mean, I'm assuming that's nutritionally
Usually.
related.
Absolutely.
So feeding a
Right.
raw diet, that would help that as well.
Right. And there are things like acidophilus that you can incorporate into the diet. You can use a little bit of plain yogurt also. A lot holds true for us as well as them.
Right. So most of those are nutritional issues. What about fleas? Is that like, hey, you just need something strong, chemicals to kill them, or can you do something holistically?
Fleas also are diet related.
Really?
Because fleas live off of the blood of animals that are not really up to par in their health. An animal's blood actually tastes different to a flea when they are sick. And if you see like a carcass and you see all the flies that swarm on it,
Right.
there's an odor, there's a taste that brings them all there. Same thing with fleas. So there are natural supplements that you can incorporate into the food which change the odor and the flavor of the system of the animal. So fleas might come on, but they have nothing to survive off of. They don't enjoy, so they're gone.
Oh, they go to the neighbor's dog, I guess.
Right. But the
one who's not so healthy.
Right. The chemical flea products, not to sound like a Debbie Downer, but they really, some of those can very much harm and or kill your dog.
Right.
It's
Well, I've always been worried
chemical.
about putting them in the house, especially
Right.
if you have kids and they're hugging the dog.
Right.
But what do? You know,
Right.
you got to get rid of fleas too.
Right.
So it's,
Right.
I guess this is certainly the best thing
Absolutely.
to try first. What about ear infections? I know like a lot of Cocker Spaniels and long-eared dogs, their ears always smell. But that's, I guess, a bacteria. So how will holistically
usually,
help
a lot
that?
of times it's a yeast problem.
Oh, okay.
And we go back to the wheat, corn, soy, rice.
Right. So
Yeast
it's like
begets
feeding that.
yeast. Right, you're feeding it. So there are herbal cleaners that you can use for ears. If you have a real ear infection and you need an antibiotic, holistic means use everything and do no harm.
Okay.
So there is a time and a place for antibiotics. There is a time and a place for vaccination. There's a time and a place for herbs. There's a time and a place for everything, and that's the true meaning of holistic.
Right. Which is interesting. So you don't tell people, hey, don't go to, you're not one of these people that says, we don't believe in medication,
Absolutely
we don't
not.
believe in the vet, whatever it
Right.
takes, but we start with the natural products
Right.
First.
Right.
What about?
Or we incorporate it into what you're doing with your vet.
Right.
The worst thing is to have a vet who says he or she is holistic and negates all of the traditional allopathic ways.
Right.
You don't want that
Right.
either.
You want somebody who does
You want
both.
somebody who does both.
What about, I don't know if this is really a health issue, but maybe it is, but the tear stains.
Absolutely.
And I see a lot of white
Absolutely.
dogs, some of
Right.
them at the dog shows, and they're spotless and they're clean and fluffy. And then I see some dogs and they're like, their eyes are just totally stained and
Dry
just
food.
doesn't look, that's the dry food cause?
Dry
is that?
food. Dry food. I had a neighbor, and he had a little white Shih Tzu, and he went on vacation, and he gave us the dog to watch for a week. And when he came home, the dog's eyes were clear and beautiful. And he said, "What did you do? Did you take her to a groomer?" And I said, "No, I'm really sorry to tell you, Rich, but I changed
You
the
just
diet."
switched the food.
Yeah,
And it's that dramatic?
it's that dramatic.
Oh, so you must look like a
Yes,
hero when
it's-
people come in and with something like that.
A lot of people don't believe, so they have to test it for themselves and
Right.
get their
Well,
own
I think
proof.
the thing is you can't do any harm. I
Right.
mean, worst thing they do is they throw out a
Right.
few dollars,
Right.
but they didn't harm it. And the best thing, I saw on your websites, the best thing that happens is it works.
Right.
We don't have too much
Exactly.
time, so I want to get into a
Okay.
couple of really important ones. Bad hips
Mm-hmm.
with big dogs and hip dysplasia, and they have problems getting up.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything you can give them? I see a lot of this chondroitin that they have in treats and
Right.
and supplements. Do you
Yeah.
recommend anything like that? Do they really work?
They do. They really do work. My own dog, who was 18 when she passed away a few weeks ago, had very bad arthritis and hip problems. And we probably used every single product that was available.
Just tried everything.
You try everything, and the ones that work are great, but just you have to remember that you can build up a tolerance. So you do want to switch, but
Right.
those ingredients do work, yeah.
Now, this is a tough one. A lot of people, people who are going to stay this far into the show are people who love their pets.
Hope so.
And they only want the best. So somebody
Right.
has a dog that has cancer
Right,
and they're going to the vet because they want to save it. Maybe they're trying chemotherapy.
right.
Is there anything that you can offer? I know with humans, they say, we should support the body with vitamins. What about pets?
Same thing.
You have the same.
Absolutely.
So you
Absolutely.
would definitely recommend,
Definitely recommend.
somebody coming in with cancer
Right.
to go into your treatment. What about
Absolutely.
table scraps? I was always thought don't do table scraps. One reason I think my parents didn't want the dog begging at the table, but then I was told, well, table scraps aren't good. They shouldn't eat human food. What are your thoughts on table scraps?
Again, it depends on what the actual scrap is, but usually we're giving a little piece of meat or we're giving a little piece of cheese or something like that. And that's not scraps. And for sure you can do that. That's all good, wholesome food. If you eat it, if I eat it, my pet should be able to eat it.
What about treats? You know, a lot of people feed a lot of these supermarket Scooby-Doo treats and Nabisco, and then I see the dogs and they're fat.
Right.
Now, not that I want to talk about fat, but I eat a lot of junk. So to me, is that junk feeding treats, or are there good treats that are actually helping them as well as rewarding them?
Definitely. Good treats are always available, and it goes back to what I said in the beginning. You have to look at the ingredient panel. You know, a lot of treats don't tell you calorie content, but you know if you're overfeeding treats.
You want to mention any treats that are good? Because people are going to, I mean, I've been to the pet store now, and there's a wall full of treats. I'm sure some are good and some aren't as good. Which treats,
There's
a couple that you recommend, or types of food, types of treats that you recommend?
We've got something called Dr. Becker Bites. That is an organic beef liver treat, and that's all that's in it, 100% beef liver. Any treat that says 100% any meat, like whole life treats, are fantastic. They come in different protein sources. Clear Conscience is a really nice, good quality company, and they have great chews that you can give, like trachea chews, bones and things. So there are some really excellent good companies that are doing great things.
I was looking at your website last night preparing, and I saw a quote that you had. It says, "Nature is the only perfect system and the best healer." So I guess sort of that's really sort of sums up everything that you're saying, to try to go to the simple, which, like I said, you're way ahead of your time, because now when people are sick, a lot of times they're going to the base, what are they called, like the base, the paleo diets and all these. They're sort of going back to what we used to originally eat.
Right.
So you're way ahead of your time on that. In the last minute or so, what about dog bones? You mentioned bully sticks. Mm-hmm. What about all these other things? I mean, now there's pig's ears, there's cow's ears, there's tracheas, there's cow hooves. What about those things? Good, bad, rawhide bones? I know you're not a big proponent of rawhide bones, so
no.
You're more into the natural.
Right. We only carry one brand of rawhide. It's a bison hide. Okay. And in a lot of manufacturing facilities, rawhide is preserved with arsenic and formaldehyde. So be careful. You don't want to do rawhide.
But the other things, pig's ears, if somebody wants to give a pig's ear or a bully stick or a cow hoof.
Again, you know, where did it come from?
Right.
Where did it come from? Is your source? Do you really, really trust the company that you're buying from?
Right. Now, what about toys? You know, I love pet toys, but are there toys that are better? Are they safe? Is not a good idea?
Absolutely.
What's your feeling on giving them toys, or some better quality? I know drugstores now sell toys too.
Right. Vinyl toys are really bad for dogs.
Okay.
So if you don't know the difference between a vinyl toy or a latex toy, ask your shop owner, because latex
by the way, is why you should go to a pet shop, because if you just go into a store and you see a toy for $1.99, you may say, it's cheap. The pet shop is $5.99, but there is a huge difference.
Huge difference.
One's safe and one's not.
Right.
Well, Randy, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. It was really a lot of fun.
I'm Gary Jacobs, and thank you for joining us on Long Island Backstory.
Long Island Backstory is made possible in part by Whiskers Holistic Pet Care, 1-800-Whiskers.com. In Manhattan at 235 East 9th Street and 2nd Avenue, 212-979-2532. And in Astoria, 19-25 Ditmore Boulevard at 21st Street, 718-626-8590.